Recently, YouTube channel D&D Daily and the Twisted Tentacle Inn decided to collaborate on a video. So we decided to come up with a character concept based on a theme. We each can use any official published material and any race and class combination and put out a video for that build on our channels. So we could end up with vastly different characters or very similar ones. The cool thing about this is that we didn't know what the other person was going to come up with. So this video is my take on our concept here at the Twisted Tentacle Inn, and I really had so much fun coming up with this character. I really hope that you like it. Welcome to the Twisted Tentacle Inn. I'm your innkeeper, and today we'll be talking about Wild Swings Sorcerer. Thank you, patrons. I love you guys. If you want to help out the channel, you can become a patron in the video description below. There will be a link. Before we get started, if you haven't heard of D&D Daily, they're an awesome YouTube channel. They're a fellow YouTuber that puts out tons of great content on their channel. They have a lot of cool and fun character concepts, mostly all built around a theme, kind of like what we're doing here today. But they also have other videos to help improve your game for dungeon masters and players, as well as the best series that I've seen on YouTube for the 5th edition Bard class. They have a really detailed series of videos, each one diving deep into a specific aspect of the class. I think you should check it out if you're interested in playing a Bard. It is almost essential for you to fully understand the class as it works in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. If you're interested in checking out D&D Daily, I will post a link in the video description. I'll post a link for their video on this concept that we're doing right now. Plus, I'll post a link for their channel as a whole so that you can go ahead and check that out. So the concept that we agreed on was a character who has a dual personality based on a coin flip. That's kind of broad, but it gave us a lot of kind of flexibility to come up with this first character in what I hope will eventually become some kind of a series of videos where we collaborate with other YouTubers, but we'll see how that goes. So I decided, since I have a channel that focuses a lot currently on the Sorcerer class, I thought it would be appropriate to make a Sorcerer character and showcase the Wild Magic Sorcerer subclass, which I haven't made a video for yet. So since I haven't reviewed the subclass or gone deep dive into the subclass, I thought this was a great way to introduce it and kind of dive into it after the fact. This character is a halfling gambler who won a coin during one of his gambling sessions, and it's imbued him with some raw magical power. But this magical energy from the coin draws from his emotions as well and imbues them into the coin. And the only way that the halfling can control this magic is by flipping the coin, and it releases some of that emotion that is being trapped inside. So when he does, he kind of becomes an embodiment of a certain emotion and projects it onto his enemies or his allies. So his emotions kind of become everyone's emotions. He may get angry, causing enemies to become poisoned with hatred. So we pick the spell Ray of Sickness for that theme. Or he might become blind with rage and then projects blindness onto his enemies using the blindness deafness spell. He may become scared and react to being attacked, and then the attacker gets imbued with this fear and causes them momentarily to be scared to hit your character, and therefore misses their attack. There's a lot of cool things that you can do, negative emotions, but you can also do some positive emotions. So your character might feel heroic, causing your allies to gain a boost in their abilities as heroes, and therefore haste. You cast haste on them. So each time the character casts one of these spells, the theme implied is that he flips the coin, and it imbues him and those around him with whatever the emotion that it lands on. In extreme circumstances, he may drop the coin by mistake, and then it causes the coin to flip several times on the ground. And that is when a wild magic surge occurs, because the coin falls to the ground, rolling and flipping, and each time it lands on a certain face, magic explodes from it. But since you're not holding it, just random raw emotions are erupting from it, and therefore a wild magic surge occurs. So this halfling was once a gambler, and his ability to misdirect has also been amplified by the magic in the coin. So in addition to his emotions, just his deception and ability to, concoct lies and such now have become illusions that he can use on his enemies as well. There's not a whole lot of that in this character build, but I thought it'd be a cool little side theme because since this thing is taking from his emotions, the ability to deceive is also something that can be tied to emotions, and I thought that it'd be cool to add some illusion magic to it. Now, as far as this character's role in a party, I thought I would go a different route than I normally do for my sorcerers. So this was kind of taking me out of my comfort zone a little bit. This sorcerer kind of debuffs single targets. Most of his spells are dealing with debuffing single targets. Some of them control single targets as well, but a lot of the effects also have some random results. Now, despite the random nature of this magic, this is not an inconsistent character at all. Random doesn't always mean inconsistent. This build works best with a mixed party that's also mostly melee and happens to have a battlefield controller who can handle groups. It can still work, but I think this works best in a group that does have an additional spellcaster like a druid that has some control spells or something to that effect. This build lacks the ability to control large groups, as I said earlier, so it's not going to work very well in a group of ranged combatants, but that's not to say it won't work at all, it just won't work very well. It's versatile enough in its debuff, control, and damage dealing that this character can get themselves out of a sticky situation if needed, even dealing a little bit of decent damage in a pinch, but it is not their specialization, so definitely be careful if you're going to be playing in that type of group. So the main strategies for this character are to use your spells to debuff and control enemies, and then your allies get to pound on them. So try to maximize your Tides of Chaos ability and Lucky, so don't be afraid to cast attack roll spells that do damage to enemies when needed, especially at the lower levels, because that'll help you maximize Tides of Chaos to ensure that your spell hits. This character also uses a lot of luck-based mechanics, allowing rerolls or adding to allies' rolls, as well as forcing enemies to subtract certain amounts from their rolls. So I like to think of this as the halfling kind of flipping the coin and having his mood affect everyone around him. So positive mood being a help to his allies, and a negative mood applying a debuff to an enemy. And in addition to those dice manipulation mechanics, you get the use of twin spells, so you can twin single target debuff spells and maximize your abilities to turn the tide of combat. Outside of combat, this character is great at social manipulation and deception. As a gambler, this character is very comfortable in social situations, especially stressful and tense ones, so don't be afraid to use Tides of Chaos in social situations. So let's go ahead and build the character. At level 1, when you create your character, you're going to choose Halfling as your race. When you choose this race, you get the Lucky ability, which lets you roll a d20 whenever you roll a 1. This ties in perfectly with the theme of the coin flip, representing a stroke of good mood and inspiration. So when you were going to fail at something, you were just so inspired to get it done that you actually end up succeeding. Instead, the magic of the coin imbues you with the inspiration and drive to actually succeed on what otherwise would have been a failure. So we're going to tie this coin to the Halfling's Lucky ability, as opposed to tying it to the race that you chose. You also get the Brave ability as a Halfling, which grants you advantage against fear. Thematically, we're going to attribute this to the gambling nature of this character. Because they were a gambler, gamblers are known to take big risks, and being able to combat fear for risky situations or stressful situations is something that this character would naturally be good at, and it's amplified even more by this magical coin. So again, this ratio ability, we're actually going to attribute it to this coin. For your ability scores, go ahead and focus on Charisma as your primary stat, then the next highest one, make it your Dexterity, and then Constitution. Then if you have any other scores that are fairly high, add them to Wisdom, because you can always use a bonus to your Wisdom saving throws. You're a very smooth and manipulative individual, so it makes sense to have a high Charisma. You can handle your own and social interactions, and Charisma also helps with your spellcasting, so it really kind of ties in together here. For a cantrip, select Mage Hand and Minor Illusion, as well as Mind Sliver and Prestidigitation. Even though you don't have a good damage option for your cantrips, I don't like any of the options that we have as sorcerers. None of them seem to fit with the theme of the character, so I chose no real attack cantrips. It's crazy, I know, especially for someone like me, but honestly, it's not a huge issue. Cantrip damage, it really isn't great anyways, and the cantrips that we've selected are right in line with the theme, and in combat, spells like Minor Illusion and Mind Sliver can be really great, actually. Minor Illusion is a great defensive and control option, and Mind Sliver is an awesome debuff, which we can always use more of. For your first level spells, we're going to choose Shield and Ray of Sickness. I hate having to take Shield, to be honest, but we really need a defensive option in this character, and the only other defensive option we had was Mage Armor. Mage Armor is more consistent than Shield, it lasts longer, and tends to use less spell slots because you only cast it once in the morning, but I think that thematically Shield works better with this character. If a creature attacks you, you flip the coin, and you cower in fear, and that emotion imbues the attacker, who then is afraid to hit you and misses the attack. I think that works so much better than some kind of always-on magical armor. Ray of Sickness is a good spell at low levels. The poison condition is really great against enemies, and since it's an attack roll, you can use your Tides of Chaos on it at the earlier levels. And you also have the ability to roll a critical hit when you attack with it. But this spell will lose its luster at higher levels, so you're probably going to want to change it out later. The poison condition is great at lower levels, but as you get to higher levels, enemies tend to be more and more resistant or immune to poison, and generally immune to the poison condition, so having the spell is just going to sit there. So at higher levels, we will be changing this out to Chaos Bolt. Even though Chaos Bolt doesn't have a debuff, at least it fits in with the kind of random emotional nature of this character. So it fits thematically and will help shore up that future weakness of this spell. Oh yeah, and of course, also this spell has, even if you're in a campaign where poison resistance and immunity is not a huge deal, at later levels, enemies will have better constitution saving throws. It's just a thing that happens. So even if you're in a campaign like, say, Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, that one, there's a lot of high level enemies. None of them are really immune or resistant to poison, but they all have really good constitution saves, so you're still kind of stuck with that. So it's still a good idea to change out to Chaos Bolt, even if you're playing in a campaign like that. Now, at those later levels, you'll notice you won't be able to use some abilities on Chaos Bolt that you were able to use on Ray of Sickness. For example, Twin Spell. You're not going to be able to twin Chaos Bolt because it does have the potential to target more than one creature, and Twin Spell has that stipulation. If a spell has the ability to target more than one creature, you can't twin it, whereas you could twin Ray of Sickness. But you can use Tides of Chaos on it. Now, it doesn't really matter at later levels that you can't twin that spell because you're going to have much better spell options anyway, so it's not really a huge deal. So in these earlier levels, definitely stay away from combat. Use Shield on attacks that are going to down you. If someone's going to attack you and you know it's not going to kill you, take the hit. It's not a huge deal. You're not really concentrating on anything at these lower levels. Take the hit. But if an attack's going to down you or, cause some effect like paralysis or whatever, that's when you're going to want to use Shield on it. Or if you're surrounded by a bunch of enemies. You can use Ray of Sickness on powerful foes and bosses to weaken them for your allies, but you'll mostly be playing a support role early on. You're going to be distracting enemies with Minor Illusion and using Mind Sliver to soften them up for your other spellcasters in your group. And outside of combat, you can easily kind of be the person that speaks for the group, what they call the face of the group. You'll have a good charisma score, so you're not going to need to resort to using spells for those crucial social interaction moments. And you can always use Tides of Chaos anyways. Wild Magic Surge is very DM dependent, so talk with your Dungeon Master about Wild Magic Surges. They'll probably need a gentle reminder every few sessions that this feature exists. It really helps with the theme of the character, so you definitely want the opportunity to use this at least once in a while. The Wild Magic Surge is a great way to showcase your character's mood, and you don't want to pass up those kind of opportunities. Tides of Chaos is a really cool ability, and it can help you land a crucial Ray of Sickness attack, or it can help you succeed on a crucial skill check, or pass a very important saving throw. Don't forget to use it. And also, don't try to save it for the perfect moment. If it's something that's somewhat important, go ahead and use your Tides of Chaos on it. You'll probably be glad that you did. And besides, Tides of Chaos can regenerate if you happen to get a wild magic surge. So it's not like you've used it and now you're done for until the next long rest. It can be, but at least you've gained the advantage of having used that ability, as opposed to going to your long rest and never having taken advantage of it because you were waiting for that perfect moment to use it. At level 2, you get some sorcery points, but you can only use them to cast an extra first level spell. You get to learn another first level spell at this level, and we're going to pick Disguise Self. This one fits with the theme perfectly and can help in certain social interactions and such. At level 3, you're going to pick a second level spell, and we're going to choose Blindness Deafness. This spell really can help the party get some great tactical advantage, and you don't need to concentrate when using it, so that's even better. At this level, you also get to pick 2 meta magic options. You can pick Quicken Spell and Twin Spell are the 2 that I recommend. Quicken Spell is going to allow you to maneuver in combat and get away when needed by quickening a spell and then using your action to dash or disengage. Twin Spell is going to allow you to nail 2 creatures with Ray of Sickness or with Blindness Deafness. You can also pull off some really cool combos with Quicken Spell, like using Blindness Deafness on a creature and then creating illusory sounds that same round with Minor Illusion. And it's going to completely confuse that creature and prevent them from attacking your party, because now they're blind and they're hearing your party members kind of near them, even though they're not. And what do they know the difference, right? It's a minor illusion. So that's pretty cool. And then your party can attack them from afar, pelt them with range attacks, or just ignore them until they've cleaned up the rest of the battlefield, and then take care of them when they're outmatched and outgunned. This trick doesn't use any concentration, and at later levels, you're going to be able to pull this off while concentrating on other control spells and such. And I know some of you are thinking, well, Blindness Deafness is not the greatest of spells. It's a Constitution saving throw. I get it, but don't underestimate the blinded condition and also the fact that this doesn't use concentration. The blinded condition is going to grant all your allies advantage on attack rolls against that creature, and that creature is going to have disadvantage to attack, if they can even find your allies. You also can move away without provoking attacks of opportunity against them, and your rogue is almost guaranteed to sneak attack every round against a blinded foe. You can use Twin Spell on it at lower levels. Later you can just upcast it if you want, but that's also really fun. Now, you can't quicken this spell and also twin it at the same round, so be mindful that you can only either quicken or twin it, but not both on the same round. At level 4, you get an ability score improvement, and we're going to maximize our charisma as quickly as possible. That'll ensure that our spells land against our enemies, and especially starting at 5th level, you're going to need as high of a charisma as possible. You also get another cantrip, and I recommend that you choose Control Flames. You'll probably need to be carrying a torch because halflings lack the dark vision trait, and with this cantrip, you're going to be able to double the range of your torch. So it's going to add some utility to the character. You also get another 2nd level spell, so we're going to go ahead and choose Mind Whip. Intelligence saving throws are great to target, and the debuff that this spell provides is really, really good. Plus, with Twin Spell, you can target 2 enemies for only 2 sorcery points, which is a real bargain, because if you think about it, if you upcast it to 3rd level, you can target 2 creatures, right? But it's a bigger resource cost because you convert a 3rd level slot into 3 sorcery points, use 2 sorcery points to twin it, meaning you are net gaining a sorcery point and targeting 2 creatures. So a little trick there that you can use as a sorcerer. Use less resources, use them smart, and you get extra resources to use later for other things. And the way I envision this spell is this is the magic of the coin getting stronger, and the blast of emotion that you give off to your enemies momentarily scrambles their brain because it's so overwhelming. Then at 5th level, you get to pick a 3rd level spell. If you're playing with Tasha's Cauldron of Everything optional rules, you can also use your sorcery points starting at this level for magical guidance. This can really help with ability checks, and it's a huge flavor win for this character. Talk with your dungeon master because you'll definitely want to be able to use this ability if you're able to get it. But because they are optional rules from Tasha's Cauldron, you may not have access to it at your table. So ask your DM first. If you get it, it's really awesome to add to this character. For your spell choice, we're going to go with Incite Greed. And I know that's probably surprising a lot of you. This spell is really good, and it's an awesome way to limit the number of attacks that your group is taking each turn. You can really use this spell to turn a combat around and have you and your allies take out enemies one by one. For the theme, I like the idea of the halfling talking about the coin and then pulling it out in the middle of the combat while greedily revealing it. Like, they've been able to benefit from its power so much, they're getting greedy about it, and this greed is now spreading to the enemies around, who all then get overwhelmed with that greedy emotion and start to walk towards you to get a good look at this coin that is so magical and so powerful. Now, of course, be mindful of the fact that more creatures are going to be immune to charm effects at later levels, so don't be fully dependent on this spell. It's a great spell, but keep that in mind. If you're fighting undead, do not pull the spell out and try to use it on them. It's not going to work, right? So a lot of creatures are immune to the charm effect at later levels. So as powerful as this spell is, it does have its limitations because of that. So have other things, other tactics or plans ready in case you are confronted with such a situation. At level 6, you get the Bend Luck ability and an additional spell. Bend Luck is very good. At a cost of only 2 sorcery points and a reaction, you can potentially cause an enemy to fail a saving throw, miss an attack roll, or an ability check. You can also use it to help an ally succeed on a save, an ability check, or an attack. This one is really good, and it stacks with your debuffs, and 2 sorcery points is actually a pretty cheap and inexpensive cost, and you don't have to waste it on a check where rolling that won't make a difference. You can save it and use it on a roll where it's going to make a difference, and then you go ahead and use your 2 sorcery points because it is a reaction. So that's really cool. Plus, there is no range limit. That's what makes this so awesome. As long as you can see the creature, you can use this ability on them. They could be 120 feet away, and that is great. With this character, expect to use this ability a lot, and I'm sure I don't have to explain the flavor that you can tie back to this. I really, really love this ability. For your spell, we're going to go ahead and choose Haste. I generally prefer Slow, and Slow also works with the theme here, but since we have Incite Greed for debuffing or controlling enemies, I decided that our other really powerful spell should be one that helps our allies, just to tie into that duality of the emotions. And I think you can really do some interesting things with Haste as well in tough battles, especially where creatures are immune to the charm effects and Incite Greed doesn't work on them. Then instead of concentrating on Incite Greed, you can concentrate on Haste. It's also really good to use when you're fighting a boss creature that has like legendary resistances or magic resistance, because hasting your allies, that creature that you're fighting, it doesn't matter if they have legendary resistance. You're not casting anything on them. That's pretty awesome. And then you can combine Haste with Quicken Spell to really make our character feel fluid and fast and extra heroic when they get that embodiment of heroism, that overwhelming emotion of awesomeness that they're going to feel. And I know what some of you are going to say. I'm in no way, shape, or form saying that you can cast a spell, quicken it, cast another spell, and then cast another spell. I am well aware that Haste doesn't allow you to cast more than one spell per round, and I'm well aware that Quicken Spell converts a level casted spell into a bonus action spell, and you cannot cast another leveled spell as an action even if you're hasted. I'm aware that what I'm talking about in terms of haste is using the extra movement and the ability to have another action to dash or disengage, to move around the battlefield, feed your friends a potion, do a bunch of stuff, use the help action, whatever you need to do. It can make you really feel like you're getting a lot done in a single round. So that's kind of what I meant by combining Quicken Spell with Haste. And since we're talking about monsters that are immune to charm effects and such, at this level is when you're going to want to swap out Ray of Sickness. A lot of creatures also become immune or resistant to poison, so now is when we're going to go ahead and get Chaos Bolt, which I talked about earlier. At level 7, you'll get a 4th level spell. I was going to pick Confusion because the theme for this character with that spell would have been amazing. But we can't take another spell that's going to be useless against creatures that are immune to charm effects. It'd just be way too inefficient of a character with such limited amount of spells known to have 2 spells that are charm spells, and then they won't be able to use either one of them against creatures that are immune to charm. So I just couldn't get myself to choose Confusion as much as I wanted to. Polymorph, that one's hilarious, and you can choose 2 animals and then flip a coin to decide which one you're going to turn the enemy to, a pig or a chicken. Which one do you want? Flip the coin, right? That kind of thing. Personally, I don't use polymorph. It's not a spell that I like, both as a DM and as a player. I never take it as a matter of principle. I don't judge you if you like to use it. If I'm at a table and another player uses it, it doesn't bug me in that sense. For me personally, I do not like taking spells that end a combat before they begin. It's not fun for me. I like having drama and, the changing tides of, are we losing, are we winning, oh, we almost beat them. But this whole, we walk in, you turn the boss into a frog and the battle's done after all this build up about this big creature that's going to kill the town and whatever, and you finally go to confront it and you just instantly turn them into a frog and that's it, end of story. I don't like that kind of storytelling, so it's just not for me. But again, I'm not judging you if you take it. Polymorph is a great choice if you want to take it. For me, I'm going to be taking Psychic Glance here, and both the debuff and the damage are in line with what we're aiming to do with this character, so that's the one that I will be picking. At level 8, we get another ability score increase. We're going to be boosting our charisma again if it's not already at 20. If it's at 19, go ahead and improve that. Also improve your dexterity and your constitution in that order. It's still important to keep your AC going up as creatures get bigger, bonuses to their attacks, so it's nice to boost that dexterity a little bit, even though it may be just 1 point. It still can make a difference. You get another spell, so if you took Polymorph last level, go ahead and take Psychic Glance this level. Otherwise, if you didn't end up taking Polymorph and you already took Psychic Glance, take Counterspell. It's a 3rd level spell, but it's a huge boost to defenses. As you're getting to these levels, now you're fighting spellcasters, and Counterspell is a great way to counteract those powerful effects where that enemy spellcaster is going to end the combat by polymorphing your entire party into frogs. At 9th level, we can pick a 5th level spell. We're going to go with Synaptic Static. There's a lot of great 5th level spells, but I wanted to pick a good spell that still remained in line with the theme, and I also didn't want to choose yet another concentration spell, since our concentration is very limited resource in a combat, and we already have 2 really good concentration spells. I wanted to make this character very fluid so that when they're concentrating on either haste or Incite Greed, they can still continue to do things each round that didn't mess with that. So I did consider Animate Objects, and that's still a solid option, but I think the debuff of Synaptic Static is more on theme, and Animate Objects requires concentration, which clashes with haste and Incite Greed. At 10th level, you get another Metamagic option. I like Heightened Spell here. We didn't pick this earlier because the sorcery point cost was really high at the lower levels, but at this level we can afford to use this Metamagic. And of course, thematically it works perfectly with this character. You flip a coin, you cause the enemy to suffer, reducing their ability to save against one of your spells. You also get to learn another spell, and we're going to go super crazy and out of left field here, and we're going to select Seeming. This is a major encounter-ending spell. You can literally change everyone in a combat to look like someone else. And unlike Polymorph, where it just ends, it just makes it a more interesting story where you can make everybody look like you're barbarian and suddenly everyone starts attacking each other. It's so much fun to use, and at worst, it takes an enemy's action to recover from it and investigate. At best, it makes the enemies attack each other and then utterly destroy themselves. Plus, it's not a concentration spell, and it lasts for 8 hours, which is crazy. Plus, you can use this outside of combat for some really cool social interaction and exploration effects. Thematically, I love the idea of flipping the coin as your character wishes they were taller or more buff or whatever, and then you flip the coin and the emotion spreads to everyone who begins to kind of long for a specific feature of someone else in the same room. So, the big enemy barbarian kind of looks at the wizard and wishes they were smarter like them, and now they end up turning and looking like the wizard. So this is kind of how I envision this spell working when you flip your coin and your emotion of this longing for the abilities of someone else kind of imbue themselves onto everybody else. For your additional cantrip, we're going to go ahead and pick Light. You may be in areas where having a torch just isn't possible, like underwater or whatever. So having this spell can help you kind of still be able to see in the dark and, be useful while in complete darkness. At level 11, you learn a 6th level spell. We're going to go with Scatter. you're going to be able to control the battlefield tremendously here and rearrange it as you need. So you can move friends and foes and, rearrange them across the battlefield, and it can easily be adapted to the theme. You flip a coin, you feel like, oh, I wish I was there. And so you do end up being there, or if you don't want to teleport yourself, you wish you were over there, and everyone starts feeling that, making them automatically teleport into the location that they wish they were. And your enemies may be thinking, oh, I wish I wasn't there, and then they end up getting put over there in the center where they're getting beat down by all the melee combatants. I think that's a pretty cool way to theme it, and it'll be fun to pull something like that off. At level 12, you get an ability score or a feat. We're going to go with Second Chance. It's a feat from Xanathar's Guide to Everything. This one lets you potentially avoid being hit once per combat. There's no limit to the amount of times you can use it. You just can only use it once each combat, but if you have 3 combats in a day, you get to use it 3 times. That's not bad. It's not the strongest feat, so don't get me wrong, but it fits well with the theme. It's kind of like casting shield in a way. And it's a half feat, so you can still boost one ability score, and of the 3 ability scores it gives you the option of boosting, it's the 3 you want to boost: Charisma, Dexterity, or Constitution. I did consider Bountiful Luck, which is also in Xanathar's Guide, but that one requires you to be within 30 feet of the ally that you're going to use the Bountiful Luck on, which is a lot to ask from a very fragile sorcerer. Generally, you're not going to be within 30 feet of one of those allies that's really going to take advantage of using this. So I figured that we wouldn't get too much use out of this one, and I went with Second Chance instead. We're almost there, guys. I know this is a long one. At level 13, you learn a 7th level spell. I didn't like any of the options for this level that fit the theme of the character, so I thought about teleport, but it was just too circumstantial to justify. So I decided to go with a 4th level spell, and I chose Greater Invisibility, which is a great 4th level spell. Our 7th level spell slots now instead are going to serve to upcast spells like Mind Whip or Psychic Glance, Counterspell, Blindness, Deafness, and nail multiple targets, that kind of stuff. Or you can convert them to sorcery points, and you'll get 7 sorcery points out of it and get more uses out of Bend Luck or Magical Guidance. Both are great abilities, and getting more uses out of them is never a bad thing. Or alternatively, you can use those 7 points to get more meta magic uses out of any particular given day. At level 14, you really don't get too much. You get the Controlled Chaos ability. It's going to give you a little bit more control of the result when you have a Wild Magic Surge. It's not terrible, but it's kind of a boring ability. It works thematically, and now you have the option to literally coin flip if you wanted to in real life. Flip a coin and decide which of the 2 rolls you're going to go with, if you wanted to do it that way and be random. You don't have to, but it even works thematically if you don't do that. At level 15, you get an 8th level spell. We're going to take Power Word Stun. This one is a good spell against enemy spellcasters specifically. It can devastate a single foe tremendously. And honestly, 150 hit points is not a terrible ask here. There's no saving throw at all, so you can stun a creature. Even if they save at the end of their following turn, you still at least got 1 round of them being stunned, which can be huge. That can just destroy an enemy. When you're level 15, your party is dishing out some serious damage. Having an enemy out of a combat for 1 round at this level is just devastating for them. And this spell bypasses legendary resistance because they don't get a save at first. So it just happens. As long as they're 150 hit points or below, they're affected, regardless of legendary resistance. And magic resistance, again, does not affect it. There's no saving throw. So you're going to see a lot of those magic resistance and legendary resistance at these levels. And it's good that you can use a spell that it kind of bypasses that. Now, do I think this is really worth an 8th level slot? I've said it in my Sorcerer Spells video. No, I don't think so. I think this spell probably would have been better as a 7th level spell. But whatever, And you can use 8 sorcery points. So crazy. And twin it. So there's that. If you wanted to just be really nuts, twin Power Word Stun and spend 8 sorcery points on it. I think if you do it just one time, I think that'll be a cool story to tell. Nasty Devastation. I think that's what we're going to call that maneuver. Nasty Devastation. At level 16, you get another ability score improvement. If by some weird, strange chance your charisma is still not 20, make it a 20 now. Then maybe boost your dexterity or your constitution if you already hit 20 with your charisma. Boosting survivability, it's always something that's going to help, so you can't go wrong with either one of those. Now, alternatively, you can choose the lucky feat instead of an ability score increase. Generally, I'm not a fan of this feat. I think it's a little overpowered, but at this level, I think it's appropriate for the level in terms of the power level, so I wouldn't feel bad about taking it. In fact, if I ever make this character and I ever make it to this level, I probably, instead of an ability score increase, I probably would choose the lucky feat. It's really on theme. It gives you a lot more uses of manipulation of dice. I think that's really cool, and it'll be fun. At level 17, you learn another meta magic option. I think Subtle Spell is a good choice here. You're probably going to be a major target when you're debuffing enemies on the battlefield, so having Subtle Spell will make it less likely for them to know that you're the one causing the problems here. I like to flavor this as you kind of flipping a coin but out of sight, and you still benefit from the magic and it still imbues people with your emotions. Since you get a 9th level spell, let's go ahead and pick our 9th level spell. I'm going to go with Psychic Scream. It has everything that we want. Good damage, a debilitating condition with the stun condition, an intelligence saving throw, which is what you want to target, no concentration requirement. It's a perfect way to top off our character with the final spell that they're going to learn for their career. At level 18, you get the Spell Bombardment ability. This one's not going to do anything that breaks the game. The damage boost is not going to be anything that's going to blow anyone's mind, to be honest. But any extra damage is welcome, and sometimes life puts you in a bad mood, and you have to take it out on your enemies. You don't get to learn any new spells at level 18, 19, or 20, so your spells are all set in stone now. And unless the campaign calls for a specific spell, you probably won't need to swap any out either. At level 19, you get another ability score improvement. If your charisma isn't 20, make it 20. If it's already 20, boost your dex or your con. And then at level 20, you get the Sorcerer's Restoration ability, your capstone ability that is amazingly bad. You get 4 sorcery points that you can recover. That's pretty lackluster. I mean, I'll take it. I'll take extra sorcery points, but it's not a whole lot of fanfare. Luckily, most campaigns don't really get to level 20, so that's it. That does it for the Wild Swing. It's crucial that you use your manipulation abilities with this character as much as possible, and try to roleplay that sometimes when it causes a result to change, and it can really be a lot of fun. Between the Tides of Chaos, Magical Guidance, Bend Luck, your Halfling Luck ability, the Second Chance feat, and the Lucky feat, you have so many tools to change and manipulate the outcome of situations that it's awesome if your character's just, their dual personality decides to change things for better or for worse. You can make it happen because you have so many ways to do it. And then on top of that, you have all these massive debuffs with spells like Mind Whip, Blindness, Deafness, Synaptic Static, Mind Sliver as a cantrip, which you can use every round if you wanted to. It's going to have your party eating your enemies for lunch. In social situations, you also can be a pretty good asset to your party. Since you have a great charisma score, you have ways to boost the rolls and change your results without using magic, so it's not like you're going to be caught doing it. This character does require some clever tactics in order to survive those early levels, so take advantage of the dice manipulation, debuff enemies, and then keep away from melee early on. Be mindful that a wild magic surge at low levels is very unpredictable and can potentially harm your group, so always keep that in mind. When you're asking your DM to allow for wild magic surges, don't push them too hard. Don't convince them to do it every single time you cast a spell, because that will eventually lead to a very bad situation. At some point, you will roll poorly, and you will cause something that is very detrimental to your group. And you don't want to have that kind of situation unless that's how your group plays. It just feels bad if your party dies because the roll just kind of took you into a direction that was beyond all of your controls. That doesn't feel good. So make sure that you kind of work that out with your DM for the low levels. At higher levels, it's not as big of a problem, but definitely at least levels 1 through 3. And if you guys are more of like realist players where you just let the dice kind of do their thing, then what you may want to do is just stay out of range to minimize the potential situations that can happen from something like this. Move your character out of range of a fireball or whatever other negative effect is possible with the Wild Magic Surge table. One of the other issues with this character is that you don't have too many control options until you reach level 5. So you're going to have to rely on mobility a lot and trickery, using minor illusion to stay clear out of danger. You can use blindness, deafness to protect you from opportunity attacks if you need to get away. Don't be afraid to quicken blindness, deafness specifically, so that then you can use your action to dash and get away. Try to use cover whenever it's possible as well. Use minor illusion to provide cover if you need to. Also, don't forget that you can drop prone at the end of your turn to grant disadvantage to enemies who attack with ranged attacks. That's a good way to stay safe as well. Cast your spells from prone if you have to. Once you hit level 5, you'll have a great control spell, and then at level 6, you can widen the gap even more between your party and enemies by having a twinned haste, thing or whatever on your allies. But don't forget that hasting yourself is also an option, and it can help keep you safe while allowing for some great tactics with quicken spell or action-activated magical items that you may have. One thing that's good about this character is that it doesn't rely too much on concentration, so you should be using haste or incite greed in most combats when you reach the mid-levels, and then you can maximize your effectiveness that way. Almost all of your other spells are concentration-free, which is going to allow you to be very effective while keeping your allies hasted or your enemies enthralled with your coin. So to wrap up, I think this could be a really fun character with a lot of roleplay potential. I had a ton of fun making this character. I loved this challenge that we had with D&D Daily. I can't wait to see what D&D Daily came up with for their character, and what their dual personality coin flipper is going to end up looking like. I'm going to post a link to his video on his channel in the video description, but I'm also going to post a link to the actual channel as a whole. That way you can check out his other videos on his channel. He has a lot of great ones. There's some great videos that go in depth with character concepts and analysis. And of course, he has an amazing Bard series that I think it is the top series for helping you create a Bard character for 5th edition. So definitely check that out. I think that this concept of a challenge with a theme for a character with different YouTubers could be a cool idea for kind of like a monthly challenge. Like we'll have the character concept of the month and a bunch of YouTubers make that same character. I think it'd be a cool way to bring the communities together. I really love that D&D Daily reached out to me about this, because I think this could be the start to something really interesting. We'll go ahead and reach out to other YouTubers and see if they want to participate. If you are a YouTuber and you've made it to the end here and you want to participate, reach out to me. My email is wickedbase@gmail.com. I'll post it in the video description as well. So other than that, if you're not a YouTuber, I'd love to get some ideas from you for the next concept. I'd also love to see what you would have done with a coin flipping dual personality character. I think it'd be really interesting to see how other people would kind of realize such a concept. And if you have ideas for the next concept, post them in the video in the comments. I'd love to read what other ideas you might have or what other challenges you want to present to me and the other YouTubers. And you can leave all of those comments and suggestions down in the comments down below. As always, I'm your innkeeper from the Twisted Tentacle Inn. Check in anytime. I'll talk with you then.